One day, while exploring the cliffsides just east of Harper's Ferry, we reached the top of the cliff only to see... What is that? Crouching down, I try to sneak closer. Where did it go? Briefly, for a moment, our Pip-Boy told us that it was the Flatwoods Monster, but then it vanished. Where did it go? And what is the Flatwoods Monster? The Flatwoods Monster was first sighted on September 12th, 1952. On that day, two brothers, Edward and Fred May, along with their friend Tommy Heyer, saw a bright object fly through the sky above the property of a nearby local farmer. The boys raced to the home of Edward and Fred May and told their mother Kathleen their story. Kathleen, knowing her boys weren't wont to make up stories, set out that night with more local children and a National Guardsman, Eugene Lemon, to try and see what this light was all about. The boys brought them to the top of a nearby hill overlooking the farm where they originally saw the bright light. National Guardsman Eugene Lemon aimed his flashlight towards the farmstead, and for a brief moment, he saw a figure. He described it as, quote, a man-like figure with a round red face surrounded by a pointed hood-like shape. The sighting so unnerved them that they contacted the press and recounted their story before a national audience. The story was then picked up a few days later by the Charleston Daily Mail, which reported the incident in their September 14th issue with a story titled, Braxton County Residents Faint, Become Ill After Run-In with Weird 10-Foot Monster. After the Mays told their story on TV, news of the Flatwoods Monster spread like a wildfire. Other newspapers picked it up, including the Charleston Gazette. They ran an article on Tuesday, September 23, 1952. By this time, skeptics were trying to find a conventional way to explain the sighting. Many were saying that it was created by a meteor's gaseous emissions. This theory was put forward because those who saw it also said that they picked up a strong smell of burning sulfur. Descriptions of the Flatwoods Monster were inconsistent. Some described it as an 8-foot creature, others a 10-foot creature. It had red eyes and green skin, but all of the reports said that it was wearing some sort of strange, pointed mantle. The Charleston Gazette ended their article, emphasizing the conventional explanation in an attempt to erase the fear of supernatural beings from the minds of the people. But strangely enough, even weeks after the sighting, visitors to the farm could still smell a faint trace of burning sulfur. This is the Flatwoods Monster of our own universe, but what about the one in the Fallout universe? Sadly, information about the Flatwoods Monster is scant. Much of what we learn comes from Shelby O'Rourke. I did a video on Shelby that you can watch here. If we visit her hunter's shack, we find her terminal, and on it, an entry she wrote about the Flatwoods Monster. Sightings 0. Descriptive traits: alien, glowing eyes, may or may not have arms, but arms strongly suggested. A cowl-like helmet with dress-like garment, often accompanied by bright lights or burning metallic smell. Could that be the strange sulfur that was mentioned in the news articles? Evidence log, bright light above the mountain region. Took photos, but sadly didn't amount to much. Investigated possible site. Some strange burning was present among the trees, but no smell. It may have dissipated overnight. Heading to Sugar Grove, we recall that analyst Beverly Solomon was working on cryptids. She has an entry on the Wendigo, the Snallygaster, and the Grafton Monster, but no entry about the Flatwoods Monster. And yet, if we travel to White Springs and explore the Enclave bunker there, in the science wing we find images of a number of cryptids, one of which resembles that creature we saw above Harper's Ferry. Could this be the Flatwoods Monster? We get a better picture about what pre-war Appalachia thought of the Flatwoods Monster while exploring the town of Flatwoods. There we find a holotape in 2 locations. We can find it either on the kitchen counter inside the Flatwoods Tavern, or on a pushcart by a radio on the deck of a nearby house on the road leading to Flatwoods next to the body of Willie May. The holotape is a pre-war radio play. Who Goes There? Part 1.
Dear listeners, it's time once again to put aside all you think you know, all you believe to be true. Time to open your mind to the strange, bizarre, and sometimes terrifying world that exists in the shadows and fringes of our own, where myth, legend, and rumor are made real. Yes, it's time for more thrilling tales from the West Virginia hills. Tonight's episode, Who Goes There? The Strange Encounter in Flatwoods, is brought to you by Sugar Bombs, the breakfast cereal with explosive great taste and 100% of the recommended daily allowance of sugar. Get your morning started right with Sugar Bombs. Our tale begins on a fateful night when a young pioneer scout, Fred Fisher, finds himself in quite the predicament, having taken a spill and fallen into a dark place.
Where am I? Jack? Biff? Mr. Bailey? Can anybody hear me?
I can hear you.
Who's there? I can't see you.
Me. My name's Sally. What's yours?
Fred.
Are you okay, Fred?
I think so. My head's a little woozy. Must have hit it when I fell.
Oh, no. Did you get lost, too?
Well, sort of. What I mean is that I was camping with my scout troop by the lake near Flatwoods. There were these lights kind of dancing in the sky.
Neat.
I guess. Anyway, we heard some weird noises and the guy's double dog dared me to go look, so I did.
All by yourself? You're really brave.
Shucks. Thanks. I followed the noises to an entrance of an old mine. It smelled awful there, like rotten eggs, but worse. Suddenly, there was this bright light shining down on me. I was super scared and ran to the mine to hide, but everything felt strange. Like my feet weren't even touching the ground. Everything went black and I woke up here in the dark.
That all happened to me, too. We'll just do what my dad says. When you've strayed or lost your foot, do what's best and stay put. They said they'd bring him soon.
There are other people here?
A very good question indeed. Tune in next time to find out the answer in the chilling conclusion of Who Goes There? The Strange Encounter in Flatwoods.
Sally? Did she say her name was Sally? This immediately reminds us of a young girl the lone wanderer met on an alien ship named Sally.
Thanks. Are you escaping? Do you want to see the rest of this place? I've seen a bunch. I can show you if you want.
We met her and learned all about her in my series on Mothership Zeta, which you can watch here. Could this Sally be the same Sally whose voice we just heard in the holotape? There's a problem here. First of all, the holotape we heard was a fictional radio play. The script was written by Stephen H. Patterson, part of his horror series, Tales from the West Virginia Hills. So it was staged. The voice we heard on that holotape was that of an actress. But it's possible that Stephen Patterson based his radio play off of a real event. It could be that he simply dramatized a story that was spreading around in the news at the time. Perhaps while crafting his story, he interviewed and took notes from the real people who were involved. So even though this is a play, it could be based on real events. Perhaps a young boy from Flatwoods did get abducted, and perhaps while on the alien ship, he met a young girl named Sally. Of course, he would only be able to share this story with the people back in Flatwoods if he ever made it back to Earth. Did he? We find out when by chance we stumble upon a holotape in a mailbox north just down the road from Delbert Winter's trailer. Inside the mailbox, we find Who Goes There, Part 2.
The final chapter of Who Goes There? The Strange Encounter in Flatwoods. In the last episode, pioneer scout Fred Fisher met a curious girl named Sally while hiding in the dark. But as it turned out, they weren't alone.
There are other people here?
Yeah, they probably just went to get more food. They'll be back soon enough. You can wait with me, and they'll give you food too. You just have to do what they want.
What do you mean?
When they want to play games with you.
Games? What kind of games?
I'm still learning the rules. Mostly, they're kind of boring and only hurt when they use the needles.
Needles?
Yeah, you know, like at the doctor.
This doesn't sound like any game I know. It sounds downright awful and these people sound really bad. We have to get out of here.
No, stay put, stay put, stay put, stay put.
Okay, stop screaming.
Flatwoods. He was disoriented but unharmed, save for 2 small wounds on each temple. To this day, Fred is convinced his strange encounter was real and even continues to search high and low for a missing girl named Sally, whom he swears he met. So I leave it to you to decide, dear listeners. Was this simply the wild imagination of a frightened boy lost in the woods? Or was Fred Fisher in fact abducted by brainwashing aliens from outer space? Be sure to tune in next week for another thrilling chapter of Tales from the West Virginia Hills.
So the boy made it back to Earth, insisting that his experience was real, and he had the scars to prove it. And after he returned to Earth, the boy spent his time frantically looking for the young girl he met, named Sally. But presumably he never found her, and that could be because she was still on the ship, which is why 200 years later, the lone wanderer meets her. But we have a slight problem. When talking to Sally during the events of the Mothership Zeta DLC, she tells us that her family was abducted after the Great War.
I don't have any family anymore. My mom and dad died a while ago, before I ended up here. You know, back when all the bombs dropped on everything. Yeah, it was right after that. And then me and my sister, we got pulled up here. Except, I haven't seen her in a long time.
So she and her sister were survivors of the apocalypse. It was only after the nuclear holocaust that the Zetans abducted her. But the holotape radio play was a pre-war radio play, which means that if this boy was really abducted, he was abducted before the war. How could a boy abducted before the war meet a girl on a spaceship who was abducted after the war? Well, the answer might be in Sally's age. After all, Sally was a young girl when she met the boy on the holotape, and she's still a young girl 200 years later when the lone wanderer meets her. By her own account, she was abducted just after the bombs dropped, which leaves us to make one of three conclusions. A, shortly after being abducted, she was cryogenically frozen, like Elliot Tokorian, whom we thawed during the Mothership Zeta DLC. But I don't like this explanation because she knows the ins and outs of the ship. She has a long memory of exploring the ship. B, perhaps the Zetans had some sort of anti-aging field. Anyone who's trapped on the ship just didn't age. This would explain why Sally didn't age, but it wouldn't explain why a post-apocalyptic survivor Sally met a pre-apocalyptic pioneer scout Fred Fisher. That leaves us with option C. The Zetans can time travel. The Zetans could have abducted Sally just after the bombs dropped, then traveled back in time to abduct Fred Fisher. But why would they send Fred Fisher back to Earth and not Sally? Perhaps that was part of the experiment. Maybe they wanted to see the long-term effects of space travel on a human child, and so they kept Sally. And perhaps they sent the boy back as part of a different experiment, maybe to see whether or not other Earthlings would believe his strange tale. Of course, another explanation is that this is not the same Sally. After all, if we look at the magazine cover that this holotape was sold with, Who Goes There? The Strange Encounter in Flatwoods, we see that Sally, the girl depicted here, has brown hair, but the Sally from Mothership Zeta had blonde hair. It's a small detail. Might not amount to much. But if this Stephen H. Patterson took such great efforts to ensure that he got the rest of the story from Fred correct, why would he get Sally's hair color wrong? Whether or not this story is true, we know that the Flatwoods Monster is real. Shelby saw one of its ships entering the atmosphere. The Enclave knew about it. And sometimes, if we're lucky or unlucky, the Flatwoods Monster may come to abduct us. Flatwoods Monster dead, we can examine it, but sadly, it fell on its face. But we see that it's wearing some sort of spacesuit. It has hovering jets attached to its waist, and it's wearing a pointed cowl. It has a helmet of some sort, and within we see an alien face with glowing eyes. It doesn't have any feet. It's a smaller creature in some sort of hovering suit. It doesn't look anything like a Zetan. How do we explain this? Could the Zetans have some sort of alien scout species that it sends to Earth for reconnaissance or to collect resources? Or could this be a completely different alien race, unrelated to the Zetans? And the Sally story is just completely fictional, not connected to the real Flatwoods Monster. Could Earth in the Fallout universe have been visited by two alien species? Unlike the Wendigo, which does have a few reliable spawn locations, as far as I know, meeting the Flatwoods Monster is completely random. I met him on the cliffside overlooking Harper's Ferry, then again just north of Dyer Chemical on the western side of the river, and once by my own camp, a short ways from White Springs. I revisited these locations a number of times trying to get it to spawn, but it never did. The Flatwoods Monster is rare, but real. It has the ability to completely disappear if it doesn't want to be seen. But when it does want to be seen, it can and will attack. It appears to be alien in nature, possibly connected to the Zetans, maybe trying to reclaim alien technology that the US government had obtained, and it's been here for a long time. And that is the full story so far of the Flatwoods Monster in Appalachia. But those are just my sightings. What about you? Tell me about your Flatwoods Monster sightings in the comments section below. I publish many Fallout videos each and every week on my channel, so if you don't want to miss my next one, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. If you have and you still feel like you're missing out on YouTube notifications, consider following me on Twitter at Oxhorn. I update Twitter manually with every new piece of content that I publish. I have a shirt shop with completely unique designs that you can't find anywhere else. My designs come on shirts in a variety of men's, women's, and children's sizes, and in a wide array of colors. You can find them on other products as well, like smartphone cases, pillows, posters, mugs, stickers, prints, etc. So if interested, you can find a link to my shop in the description below, or you can click here. If you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming a patron on Patreon or a member here on YouTube. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon with more brand new videos.